Today we are discussing Daenerys' visions in the House of the Undying. Visions in A Song of Ice and Fire are often unreliable and deliberately misleading. However, in Daenerys' storyline, they tend to function as surprisingly accurate foreshadowing of her future. Daenerys arrives at the House of the Undying towards the end of A Clash of Kings. Upon entering, she is given a strange inky potion known as Shade of the Evening, which functions as a powerful magical hallucinogen. After drinking it, Daenerys experiences a series of visions drawn from both the past and the future. She also receives several prophecies concerning her fate. In this video, we will examine each vision and prophecy in detail, analysing their meaning both within the current narrative and in relation to the future of the story. A beautiful woman sprawled naked on the floor while 4 little men crawled over her. They had rattish pointed faces and tiny pink hands, like the servitor who had brought her the glass of shade. One was pumping between her thighs, another savaged her breasts, worrying at the nipples with his wet red mouth, tearing and chewing. This vision is widely interpreted as a metaphor for the War of the Five Kings. The beautiful woman represents the continent of Westeros, while the 4 little men ravaging her symbolize the 4 remaining kings, Stannis, Balon, Robb, and Joffrey, Renly having already died by this point in the narrative. The vision illustrates how the conflict devastates the land itself, and by extension, the small folk who live upon it, a theme often explored in George's writing, specifically in Brienne and Arya chapters in Feast, Clash, and Storm. Farther on, she came upon a feast of corpses, savagely slaughtered. The feasters lay strewn across overturned chairs and hacked trestle tables, a sprawl in pools of congealing blood. Some had lost limbs, even heads. Severed hands clutched bloody cups, wooden spoons, roast fowl, heels of bread. In a throne above them sat a dead man with the head of a wolf. He wore an iron crown and held a leg of lamb in one hand, as a king might hold a scepter, and his eyes followed Dany with mute appeal. This vision is clearly foreshadowing the Red Wedding, notably appearing a full book before the event itself. The imagery of a feast with corpses strewn throughout the hall directly depicts the events of Edmure's wedding, and a dead man with the head of a wolf is exactly what the Freys do to Robb Stark's body after his murder. The reference to an iron crown further reinforces this interpretation, as Robb is the only king whose crown is made of iron. She remembered those great wooden beams and carved animal faces that adorned them, and there outside the window, a lemon tree. The sight of it made her heart ache with longing. It is the house with the red door, the house in Braavos. No sooner had she thought it than old Sir Willem came into the room, leaning heavily on his stick. "Little princess, there you are," he said in his gruff, kind voice. "Come," he said. "Come to me, my lady. You're home now. You're safe now." This vision is a reflection of Dany's past, specifically her memory of living in the house with the red door. This is said to have been in Braavos, but many people theorize that this house may have been in a different city altogether, most notably because lemon trees do not grow in Braavos. We see in Sam's chapters that no trees grow in Braavos. This has led to an alternate theory placing the house in Dorne. The argument rests on several points. Firstly, lemons grow really well in Dorne. Secondly, Oberyn Martell was allegedly plotting a second rebellion after Roberts, in response to the murder of Elia and her children. And lastly, there existed a marriage pact between Viserys and Arianne, suggesting Dornish support for both Viserys and Daenerys. However, this theory begins to unravel when we examine the Princess in the Tower chapter more closely, where Doran Martell explicitly states that he intended for Viserys to marry Arianne, but that this meeting never occurred. Unless Daenerys was living separately from Viserys, which is not supported by the text, the house with the red door cannot have been in Dorne, otherwise Viserys and Arianne would have met long ago. It remains possible that the house was located in another free city, although this is less compelling and I don't have much to say on that right now. This vision symbolises Daenerys' deep yearning for stability and a permanent home, something she has never truly possessed. Beyond loomed a cavernous stone hall, the largest she had ever seen. The skulls of dead dragons looked down from its walls. Upon a towering barbed throne sat an old man in rich robes. an old man with dark eyes and long silver grey hair. "Let him be king over charred bones and cooked meat," he said to a man below him. "Let him be the king of ashes." This depicts the Mad King Aerys II ordering his pyromancers to burn King's Landing during Robert's rebellion. This vision is the first hint to Dany that the lies the usurper spread about her father are not in fact lies at all. Viserys was her first thought the next time she paused, but a second glance told her otherwise. The man had her brother's hair, but he was taller, and his eyes were a dark indigo rather than lilac. "Aegon," he said, to a woman nursing a newborn babe in a great wooden bed. "What better name for a king?" "Will you make a song for him?" the woman asked. "He has a song," the man replied. "He is the prince that was promised, and his is the song of ice and fire." He looked up when he said it, and his eyes met Dany's, and it seemed as if he saw her standing there beyond the door. "There must be one more," he said, though whether he was speaking to her or the woman in the bed she could not say. "The dragon has 3 heads." He went to the window seat, picked up a harp, and ran his fingers lightly over its silvery strings. This vision is clearly Rhaegar, a Targaryen who looks like Viserys, but taller and skilled playing the harp. During the scene, Rhaegar says, "There must be one more, and the dragon has 3 heads," which shows that this vision depicts the birth of Aegon, who is Rhaegar's second born, and strongly implies his intentions to have another child. Elia was already frail after Aegon's birth, and the text implies that another pregnancy would have likely killed her. This helps to explain why Rhaegar later chose to run away with Lyanna Stark instead, and if his intention with Lyanna is to produce another child, this moment is a key piece of evidence for Jon being Rhaegar's son. That's all the visions for now. Next, we have some prophecies. 3 fires must you light, one for life, one for death, one to love. The fire for life is the clearest of the 3, and almost certainly refers to Drogo's funeral pyre, which results in the birth of Dany's dragons. Here, fire quite literally brings new life into the world. The other 2 are far more uncertain. The fire for death could refer to any number of the people Dany burns over the course of the story. A strong candidate is her burning of the Astapori slave masters. That fire kills the slavers, but it also allows Dany to claim the Unsullied without paying for them. In that sense, the fire is both a fire of death and a fire for the death of her future enemies. It could also refer again to Drogo's funeral pyre, since Dany lights it with the intention of killing Meereenese. The fire to love is even more ambiguous. The other 2 fires were for life and for death, but this is to love, suggesting that this fire was made to allow Dany to love. It could point to a future act, potentially something Dany will do for Jon in A Dream of Spring, such as burning Whites or the others in order for Dany to love and marry him. Even more speculative, if the dragon show is to be believed, the fire to love could be Dany's burning of King's Landing, something Dany's insane mind would love. It could once again refer back to Drogo's pyre, since Dany burns Drogo to love him. We can see that all 3 fires fit the events of Drogo's funeral pyre, but since the wording of the prophecy suggests 3 distinct fires, the funeral pyre is most likely only the fire for life, with the fires for death and to love likely referring to events later in the story. 3 mounts must you ride, one to bed, one to dread, one to love. These prophecies aren't straightforward either. We could just interpret mounting in the literal sense as riding something, but it is useful to consider mounting as an innuendo for sex. The mount to bed could be Hisdar, the Meereenese noble she marries to stop the Sons of the Harpy, since she must marry him but doesn't like him that much, hence just to bed. In the same way, this could refer to Daario, whom Dany cannot marry but just beds. However, the mount to bed is probably just literal. It is most likely Dany's horse, which she rides on her way to bed Drogo at their wedding. The mount to dread could be Euron Greyjoy. If Dany were to marry Euron for his ships, she might come to dread his presence. Although I think it's far more likely for Euron to marry Cersei, or even Melisandre. The mount to dread is probably Drogon, because he resembles Balerion the Black Dread, or because Dany is genuinely afraid of him at times, and struggles to control him. The mount to love could be Khal Drogo. Dany thinks about how much she has loved him, and thinks she won't love anyone else. But it could also be Jon. Dany and Jon seem like a likely couple, and Dany didn't initially marry Drogo for love, but rather for swords. Jon is the best candidate for someone Dany might choose to marry for love. 3 treasons will you know, 1 for blood, 1 for gold, 1 for love. This one is perhaps the most interesting of the prophecies. The treason for blood is the clearest. It almost certainly refers to Meereenese killing Dany's unborn child in revenge for the destruction of her people by Drogo's Khalasar. This is a deeply personal betrayal, paid for in blood, and fits the wording perfectly. The treason for gold is much stranger. Dany initially believes this refers to Jorah, but Jorah only betrayed her in the hope of receiving a royal pardon, not for money. She later suspects Brown Ben Plum, who switches sides and joins the Yunkai besieging Meereen. However, Brown Ben's betrayal is motivated by survival rather than greed. He believes Dany will lose if she refuses to use her dragons, and he betrays her to save his men. If we look at the people closest to Dany, most of them can be ruled out. Missandei and Grey Worm would never betray her, and Jorah would almost certainly never betray her again. Tyrion is sometimes suggested, since Casterly Rock is full of gold, but Tyrion has far more to gain by supporting Dany rather than betraying her, especially given that he has virtually no other viable allies in Westeros, besides possibly Fagon. Victarion could betray Dany for gold, but he is almost certainly not long for this world. George has openly talked about intending to kill him off. A more plausible candidate is Daario. As a sellsword, betrayal is part of his profession, and he has no strong moral code tying him to Dany beyond lust and convenience. Sellswords follow coin, and that alone makes him suspicious. That said, there is very little solid evidence pointing to any specific character at this stage. It is entirely possible that the treason for gold refers to someone who has not been introduced yet. The treason for love is also hard to pin down. One possibility is Jon betraying Dany, either to claim the throne for himself, or out of love for the small folk, if Dany goes mad. At this point in the story, however, there is no one Dany truly loves in a way that clearly fits the prophecy, so this part is almost entirely future speculation. Overall, these prophecies are very vague, and most of them still lack clear answers in the text. If you have any alternate theories about what these fires, mounts, or treasons might be sure to leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear them. Next, Dany sees a lot of visions in a fast-paced montage. Viserys screamed as the molten gold ran down his cheeks and filled his mouth. This is Viserys' death in Vaes Dothrak. A tall lord with copper skin and silver gold hair stood beneath the banner of a fiery stallion, a burning city behind him. With the skin of a Dothraki and the hair of a Valyrian. This is almost certainly what Dany's unborn child might have been like, as it lines up with the prophecy of the stallion who mounts the world. Rubies flew like drops of blood from the chest of a dying prince, and he sank to his knees in the water, and with his last breath murmured a woman's name. This is Rhaegar dying at the Trident. The woman's name is almost certainly Lyanna. Glowing like sunset, a red sword was raised in the hand of a blue-eyed king who cast no shadow. This is Stannis, who is a blue-eyed king with a glowing red sword. He casts no shadow because it was used to kill Renly. Some readers see the blue eyes as an indication of Stannis becoming the next Night's King. That is Night's King, not Night King, who is a figure separate from the one in the show. The Night's King is a Lord Commander of the Watch, who betrayed his oaths and married another. This interpretation is quite silly, because Stannis has blue eyes anyway, so this does not require further discussion. A cloth dragon swayed on poles, amidst a cheering crowd. This describes a fake dragon, which implies Fagon. The more interesting line is the cheering crowd, implying that Fagon will be loved by the small folk and welcomed as a saviour figure. This could also be Dany taking Westeros with a cloth banner, but I like the Fagon idea better. From a smoking tower, a great stone beast took wing, breathing shadow fire, mother of dragons, slayer of lies. The stone beast likely refers to a dragon born of stone, echoing Melisandre's prophecies. The phrase Slayer of Lies is especially important here, and may suggest that Dany will expose Fagon as a Blackfyre rather than a true Targaryen. Her silver was trotting through the grass to a darkling stream, beneath a sea of stars. This is Dany's wedding night? A corpse stood at the prow of a ship, eyes bright in his dead face, grey lips smiling sadly. This could be Euron given his association with ships and death, but it fits Jon Connington far better. Jon Con sails for Westeros at the end of Dance. His dead face and grey lips point to his greyscale, while the sad smile reflects the fact that he is finally returning home and conquering Westeros for Rhaegar, even though he knows that he will not live long. A blue flower grew from a chink in a wall of ice and filled the air with sweetness. The blue flower is a winter rose, a flower associated with Lyanna Stark. This implies that a part of Lyanna, i.e. Jon Snow, is at the wall. A little girl ran barefoot towards a big house with a red door. This is Dany's memory of her childhood in what is supposedly Braavos. Meereenese shrieked in flames, a dragon bursting from her brow. This is Drogo's funeral pyre. The dragons bursting from Miri's brow is a metaphor for the dragon's birth from Miri's sacrifice. Behind a silver horse, the bloody corpse of a naked man bounced and dragged. This is what the Khalasar do with the man who tries to poison Dany. A white lion ran through grass taller than a man. This describes a Harakar, a white lion native to the Dothraki Sea. Drogo hunts one and returns to Vaes Dothrak with the lion pelt as a gift for Dany. Throughout Dany's storyline, we often see her wrapped in it, as it reminds her of her dead husband. Beneath the Mother of Mountains, a line of naked crones crept from a great lake, and knelt shivering before her, their grey heads bowed. This is clearly Vaes Dothrak, which lies beneath the Mother of Mountains, the crones of the Dosh Khaleen. Their submission suggests that Dany will win their support, and through them, the loyalty of the Dothraki Khalasars. Since we haven't seen this already, and Dance ends with Dany heading towards Vaes Dothrak, this vision points to the near future of her story in the Winds of Winter. 10,000 slaves lifted blood-stained hands as she raced by on her silver, riding like the wind. "Mother," they cried, "Mother, Mother." This is clearly Dany when she liberates the slaves from Yunkai. And that's it for the visions in the House of the Undying, as this vision ends with the cowl being lifted, to reveal that the slaves are in fact the Undying grasping at her, where Drogon then proceeds to burn the Undying alive. Thank you everyone for watching. This video serves as preparation for part 3 of my series on the Meereenese Plot, where I will be examining Daenerys' future in the Winds of Winter and beyond. If you enjoy my content, be sure to like and subscribe. It really goes a long way. Thank you to all the excellent artists who produce A Song of Ice and Fire artwork. It's all really beautiful, and without it I would not be able to make these videos. Cheers.